Welcome to LaunchCode with Mike and Paul, two industry veterans who will take you on their exciting adventure building their software company from the ground up. Get ready for cutting-edge tech insights, candid stories, and a whole lot of fun along the way. Welcome to their amazing adventure. Welcome to LaunchCode. You have been listening to LaunchCode with Mike and Paul. You can find all episodes on your favorite podcast services and on our website at elastiforce.com. In addition, if you have software development or Oracle or PeopleSoft managed service needs, visit us at elastiforce.com and let's see how we can help.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to LaunchCode with Mike and Paul. My name's Paul Schneider. With me is Mike Dillon. Mike, how are you today?
I'm excited. The Coastal World Series starts today. So
yeah. Do you have a dog in this hunt, as they say? Or
I'm embarrassed to say this will probably be the first game I've watched in 3 years.
Yeah.
But of course, my dog is the Dodgers. It's got to be.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't necessarily care one way or the other, but it's going to be a great series. It'll be fun to watch. So, well, traditionally our podcasts typically focus on, technologies and really improving your organizations. But today we're going to focus on the human element and how leadership and the fit of leadership is key to organizational success. And to help us do that, we have one of the thought leaders in the leadership and organizational success area, Dr. Jeff Evans, who's the CEO and founder of Envision Global Leadership, also known as EGL, with us. Jeff and EGL, they provide Fortune 500 companies with leadership development, succession planning, and executive selection services. And EGL it's impressive. They've worked with organizations across the spectrum of industries, including companies like Chevron and NASA, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, Texas A&M, Aetna, just to name a few. So with that, I want to welcome Dr. Jeff Evans to LaunchCode. Jeff, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here. Appreciate it, Paul. Mike?
Well, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background, how you became interested in just leadership development in general.
Well, that's a pretty good. Well, we got short time for a long story there. I got my doctorate at Texas A&M back in the 90s. And as part of that, I was researching various things around personality testing, which was of interest to me at the time. And I played with it through leadership is because I got sponsored. It was the sample of convenience. I worked for an oil company, and they allowed me to do it. So we had some leadership components in here, which was not actually something I wanted to do because I was probably one of the most, anarchist type of people. I didn't believe in structure. I didn't think that no bosses, and. But I did some research on it then. I kind of started piqued my interest when I did that in my dissertation and some of the other doctoral work that I did. But I immediately, even before I graduated, the oil company I worked for sent me to headquarters to be a corporate OD consultant and go around the world setting up organizations that were floundering. And we would move them into higher performance. And it did this through self-managed teams. So I spent about a decade building self-managed teams around the world, and organizations that were 3 levels, very flat. And we had no bosses. We had people who were functional managers. They had capacity like this. And here's what was interesting about them was that they would succeed like nobody's business, 100, 120%, 200% improvements in basically anything that you would measure. And then the other part of it was they would flame out and fail just as quick. Boom. Just as bad. Spectacular flame outs. Never could really figure out why, because we did them all exactly the same. And some years later, I'm sitting in my backyard here in Santa Barbara, and I'm reading about some research on emotional intelligence. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. It answered an old question about teams. In the 40s, there was a British psychoanalyst who was doing research on teams while he was repatriating troops off of Dunkirk who had shell shock. And he actually was the kind of founder on group process. He wrote books on it and all. But he had one thing that never gets talked about anymore, that he had said that his major finding is in the absence of clear and aspirational leadership, the most paranoid member of a team will assume the position of a natural leader. It's where we got the concept of natural leadership. And they will be the first to find something to fight or something to run away from. And so it fascinated me. I said, the thing I was reading says that everyone moves either towards something that's aspirational or away from something they're afraid of. Mm-hmm. So all groups are always in this dynamic between kind of love and trust and fear and doubt, And I went, wow, that explains it. Now I care about leadership, and I changed my company to leadership that very day. And I've quit doing large organization work and change work, and now I do leadership. And so that's what I go after. It says, how do you find people who care about something and, will put it out where people can follow? You have something to move towards that is worthwhile, not something to run away from or try and kill.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It's like you want people to feel the religion of what you're going towards, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. We want that. That's what matters. What matters.
Yeah. Hey, you've worked with a variety of different organizational types.
Yeah.
So as we're talking about this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
are there common mistakes? Because I think you've already identified what the positive is that would be common. Are there common mistakes made in leadership development and also likewise in succession planning?
Absolutely. We see them a lot. And one of the biggest things, and part of it is structural and all that, is just that the biggest mistake that gets made is that when we learn, all of us, each of us on this call, everyone around, anyone we all got where we are by establishing a winning strategy for ourselves. What helps us win? And very early, this is, you establish this when you're about 6 or 7 years old, or, maybe even earlier. I know how to get a cookie when I need one. I know how to win on that or the other things. But in school, it's usually by being smart, having the right answer, telling the teacher what they want. You achieve through school, you get hired out of college because you had a degree, which you got because you made the grades. And so they start promoting you in, and at early level jobs, your success is all about technical accomplishment. You hire an accountant to be a good accountant. And so the mistake that most companies make is they carry that theme of technical competence all the way to the top of the organization. And about halfway through, that competence doesn't win anymore. It becomes relationships. And it's all about how I get people together who can do more than I can do and know more than I know. And I don't always have the right answer. So they make the mistake of using technical competence and overestimating it all the way through the roles. And it's what kills them. It's what causes people to peter out. Peter principle, That's the basis of it. But that's the most common mistake, is hiring for technical competence in a senior level role when it's really relationships.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. That's the only reason Paul's with me. Right?
That's right.
So,
Mark, that's what I know you on this, and I know how you are with things, and what's made you successful clearly has been, relationship skills.
It certainly wasn't technical knowledge.
But it really wins in places where we're not in direct control.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, it's always better to have a team of really smart people and smarter than yourself, and not being fearful or too prideful to not listen to that team, right? And their expertise.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I know you've developed a variety of proprietary tools, and I'll mention one of them. So ALLII Map for leadership assessment, and I find this tool hugely interesting. But I'll let you talk about it. What does the tool evaluate, and how does AI help in that assessment?
Oh, thanks. This is one of those that I realized many years ago working with, the C-level, is that those very specific competencies for what wins with a CEO job they just don't get measured anywhere. There was no way to get at those. So I couldn't go out and buy an instrument. So I ended up having to make one. But what really was different about it was I started with the CEO role and says, what wins at the top? When we have this, what are the relationship skills? How do they win when, more than half your job's outside the organization and you're working with lobbyists and you don't have any direct control on anyone? Everything's influenced. So I took that and I started saying, what are the behaviors that they're exhibited and how do those manifest? I took it all the way down to where you could do it at an entry-level job. And we created the ALLII Maps, which it's an assessment process that is behaviorally based. It's not an innate trait. It's all learned and learnable. And we measure positive and negative related behaviors, things that create what we would call resonance in your organization so that people can move towards, or create dissonance where they want to run away, become disengaged. So it's all behaviors. It's all that. We measure that. And then since then, we've been able to tie in machine learning and AI to be able to predict with a particular behavioral profile, how will an organization respond to that? Will they change readily? Will they run away? Will they engage? So that's our kind of crown jewel on that. Is that it's you can look across any organization. It's culturally agnostic. It doesn't care what industry you're in. So we've had great success with that. We've done thousands of them, and everywhere from super majors down to small organizations, and we get the same results every time. It's just it's a great predictor for how your organization is going to work if you put that person in a role.
Yeah, and you have another tool as well, SuccessionNAV. Actually, I should follow up. How does AI, is there a specific part that AI plays in ALLII Map in terms of the assessment?
Yes, absolutely. Well, and we haven't completely integrated it into the feedback reports yet, but that predictor mechanism, we can take, say, what a person is interested in. I'm going into a role, and I'm in a role where I need to lead change. I'm a project manager for large implementations. I work for Elasticforce, and where at the end of the profiling, or at the end of the process, when they get their report, it can highlight which areas they most need to develop in order to be more effective in that role. Yeah. And that's the AI that does that. It's the kind of predictive element in it.
Yeah, and I imagine the tons of data sets, huge data sets that vet this, that have been perfected over the years, right? So
yeah, we've got 5 million data points or something like that in there. It's a lot.
Yeah, it is. Give or take 1,000 or so.
Yeah, they're small. They're small. You can carry them all in a very small bag.
So EGL has another tool called SuccessionNAV for succession planning and candidate selection. Really impressed with this, and really impressed with organizations that put an emphasis on this. A lot of times that's only done at the executive level, and I've only had one company that I've worked with where it went all the way down to consultants. If you lose this one, who replaces them? That kind of thing. And yeah, first, would it surprise you that I've worked for all these organizations and they focused on the leadership, but they haven't really focused on it all the way down the hierarchy.
Right. That's the major mistake that they make.
Yeah.
Because it starts right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does your tool help in planning, and as well as, I guess, candidate selection?
It works with the same. We use the ALLII Map as part of this process. So if you were, say, a talent manager, or an HR manager, or an executive, and you're looking at your candidate pool, your future leader team. So we look across the group, and we'll pick, say, 10 people who are their future leader potentials, and we'll run our ALLII Maps on each one. And the way we built the ALLII Maps in terms of their inter-instance reliability, we can compare results. You say that, that this one and this one, we can take them and look across the whole, and we put them into one report that gives them a profile of their kind of de facto leadership profile, effectiveness as an organization. So first of all, they can look at, do we need to do leadership development programs as a whole on this group to move in this direction? That also looks at things like at the enterprise level, when you start going and leading across organizations. So leadership, at the low level, it starts like a spotlight that shines down into a work group. And then as you get up, it gets larger and larger until it's basically kind of T-shaped. And it's just, you're going out and up, kind of like the top of a mushroom. Maybe that's where they get the mushroom syndrome. I'm not sure. But that's the way that's a different story. Wrong analogy. But the idea is how do you lead across? And so we can take and make predictors on those. And the last thing we do is we take 6 different elements and we predict organization response to each one of the leaders in those 6 areas. So you can look and say, if I promote this person or if I bring them in, how will the organization respond in those 6 critical areas? And you can use it. It's valid enough to be used with other processes to promote. Or you can use it as development or the other things. But you look at it's eagle eye view. You just look across the whole organization and go, oh, this is where we are. And the other thing about it that I really like is that, I was in on the other side corporately at one point where we were having to put these programs in and develop and do these plans. And, it's like the HR person, you never have any money. It's, you've got you've got all this responsibility, but you got to go in and you got to always pitch. We need to develop. Well, how much is it going to cost? Well, it's going to cost. Well, what am I going to get? Well, in a case like this, you can point and say, these are the aspects we need to develop specifically, and that's where we're going to spend our money. And, you don't go out and buy, one size fits all development programs. You go very specifically, whether it's one person that needs developing or it's a whole group. It's really sharp for spending money wisely.
Yeah. So following up on that, what are some specific examples that you've seen of some of the best succession planning and execution? I know you've worked with a lot of organizations, and you've probably seen some pretty good ones.
Yeah, I have, and most of them have been in super majors. That I guess they've been doing it for long enough, but they also have enough deep visibility on people that and the ones that have been the most effective have actually been where they had managed international or multinational groups of people and managed them as like a set of chess players where they're moving them across the board and planning experiences and various other things as well. And those have been extremely effective. And also, the more they move them and the more planful they are, the more they create, I was going to say, homogenous brand of leadership, so that it's real cultural embedding and it's stabilizing. But those are also, super majors tend to be the lowest rate of change in the world. not a lot of change. I mean, there is change. I shouldn't say that because there's many, many things that change in those areas. But with what they're doing, the people typically don't have to deal with great deals of, say, market change or product change or the other things as well. Sure. So their job is usually to create predictability and reliability. So the more that they can homogenize these leadership styles in the culture, so it's planning. You know, it's the best case scenarios for all of it. It's small succession word, large planning word. The more planning they do, the better it works.
I love I'm going to jump in. I love the moving people around. And I was at PwC for a while, and they did a really good job. Mm-hmm. So just when a leader was getting comfortable in a role, they might be in that role for 2 years, they put them in something completely different. And, mm-hmm. you know, you kind of worry, hey, well, you know, you didn't groom a skill set for them to be over in this other area. But you know what? They were smart people. They learned. And, right. And they also, like you said, it homogenized, and not in a bad way. It actually opened, maybe homogenize isn't the right word. It broadened their vision on the business. It broadened their expertise that they brought to that role was then different, and helped the group. So in a way it homogenized, but it homogenized and broadened at the same time. Fascinating. So you know, it's interesting that you mentioned that. And I hadn't really, you know, recently thought about how important that was.
Yeah. You know, that's Paul, you gonna say something there?
Go ahead, please.
No, it's one of those things that it's a really important thing about leadership. It's and it goes back to an old Mark Twain quote. Mark Twain said once, it says, "It's not what you don't know that gets you in trouble. It's what you know for damn sure that just ain't so." And so that whole idea is that once you do the role jumping like that, and you begin to see the bigger picture, you begin to realize how limited your perspective is.
Yeah.
And it's that softening of my certainty of what I know, and the ability to ask, the ability to be in a not knowing. And that's what makes executive teams work well, is when they actually will listen to someone else and learn, be the learner for a little while.
Yeah, you know, well, that kind of gets me to the question that I had, because leadership is evolving, and I would imagine the traits of leaders are evolving. And how are you seeing that evolution happening over time?
Well, that's a good question. Well, say more about what you see in evolving, Paul, just so I can answer that a little better.
What he's thinking of, I'll just jump in, is that you know, if you go back into the Jack Welch era, right? Hey, I'm going to constantly fire the bottom part of the organization and turn it over, right? I'm not really caring about developing them. So there was a different kind of mandate from the leader at the top, which wasn't necessarily I'm going to listen. It was more of an authoritarian, I've got a vision, we're going to execute on that vision. So as we look at an evolving world, right, more of a world economy, more of different points of view, more of not as homogenized, right? So, and you think about DEI, right, and the importance of actually different perspectives, you know. So maybe it's not that the leadership has changed. Maybe we've recognized what will pull an organization together and push them forward, and that's changed. Maybe the perception of what a successful leader in the past looked like versus what it is today.
Yeah. So, Paul, to answer your question, what Mike said.
Well, there you go. Excellent job, Mike.
That's exactly it. It's what makes leadership effective hasn't changed in tens of thousands of years. It is hardwired biologically into us. You know, we respond with, you know, our neurobiology. It's hormonal. But what you're saying is exactly correct. We're beginning to recognize that the old authoritarian kind of, you know, dictatorship works about that far, but not in an expansive world, not in a DEI world, not in a cross-cultural environment. It's just Yeah. In fact, that was the thing that if you look at my company's name, Envision Global Leadership. That's that's a big name. Sounds like wow, global leadership. We have people all over the world, but when we work with all over the world. But when in the '90s, when we started hitting these big global mergers, I would work with an executive and sit down and say, "Well, what's your challenge this year?" I now have the job. I am global product manager. Oh wow, okay. What's the key challenge? And he said, "Well, it's global." And okay, so you travel a lot? No, that's not it. It's global. What does it mean to be a global manager? How do you do? It says, who's done it? How can I learn how to do this? We go, well, no one's done it. This is brand new. We haven't led at this level yet. And so we have to make it up. And so that's where I got the name, just to envision global leadership. Because we're still trying to figure out how to do it. But Mike, you just hit it. It's you can't mandate it. You can't give commands to those people who don't even understand what you're commanding, because it's so culturally out of step. Yeah. We gotta be big listeners these days.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of that, because it's always like, where's the proof in the pudding, right? Do you have an example? You don't have to name the name of a leader, but just give us like the context a little bit of that's gone through the assessment, found a blind spot, wasn't aware of, and actually worked on that area, and then saw improvement. Like, I love the personal stories, again, without naming names.
Yeah, I've seen so many of them. It's most of the time it's been people who are really hit a mid-level job and they're struggling, and to the point where they may not be going to make it, or at least they're going to stop right there. That's it. They may get demoted out, they may get moved out. But I can think of actually a number of them, but one of them in particular who has hit that spot and had was really up against a wall, but going through the assessment really got the fact that this was a he was leading by pure what he knew, and he didn't know enough in that role, and he tried to know all the answers, and he was going crazy trying to learn it all. And when he backed off and started listening to people and bringing people together into teams, he turned his failure into success, and within 3 years he was at a C-level table, with at another organization, another part of the organization. But it was like night and day, the results. Not that he got better, not that he was doing anything anymore. He was actually doing less than he was trying to do before. He was working a whole lot less hard. But the organization was doing what it's supposed to do. Most of the time, people they're just in the way of their organization.
Yeah, yeah.
They're productivity killers.
Yeah. No, I think we've all seen that.
I'm sure we have.
Hey, does EGL have any interesting projects or new initiatives underway today?
They mentioned we do work with Veteran Affairs.
Yeah.
And so we just started another 4 years with them, and we'll probably we've worked with approximately or maybe close to 2,000 of their senior executives so far, and we will do another couple of thousand here over the next few years. Kind of the same thing. We use ALLII Maps. We help people work out better winning strategies to be able to be more effective in their roles, and that's an interesting one. So that's kind of on the work front. On the other hand, we're going out and kind of an interesting project is we're expanding out the certification levels on our ALLII Maps. We're allowing many more people to certify those, the various different versions of them that we have. So those are our two big things right now.
Well, I imagine all the different organizations that you've impacted over the last 20 years or so. I'm sure everybody is very glad you're no longer an organizational anarchist.
Yes. Although I was a whole lot more fun back then.
I don't believe it. I think you're a lot of fun still. This is great.
Oh, I don't know. I just couldn't believe that anyone ever needed to be a boss, and that's really still, though, I still believe that, and that we don't need bosses. It's this power over thing. It's just if in order for a person to be power over another, then this other person has to be power under. So you have this powerlessness that comes out of it, and it's really, we don't want to. We want to empower people. We want powerful workforces. Right. So from that perspective, I'm still a little bit of an anarchist. When it comes down to bosses.
Really good conversation and really good points, Jeff. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
No, it's a pleasure.
And thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode of LaunchCode with Mike and Paul. Until next time, we'll talk to you then.
Thanks, everybody.
You have been listening to LaunchCode with Mike and Paul. You can find all episodes on your favorite podcast services and on our website at elastiforce.com. In addition, if you have software development or Oracle or PeopleSoft managed service needs, visit us at elastiforce.com and let's see how we can help.